Hey, I think you're really going to enjoy this 50-minute video. So I'm here in Costa Rica. Yesterday, I actually presented at a 20-person mastermind event. I was breaking down short-term rentals. There are about 20 people who are all experts in different types of real estate. I ended up being the short-term rental guy. You're going to absolutely love this video. 3 days ago, I did a preview of what I was going to cover at this mastermind event. I invited a bunch of people who are already B&B Accelerator clients, plus people who are on the fence about working with us, who just want clarity on things like why short-term rentals, why now, how does the bonus depreciation stuff work, how does the tax stuff work, how do you get cash flow, and how do I take the guesswork and legwork out of doing all this. So I'm going to flip over to that video call, and I hope you enjoy this. Hey, what's up, guys? So we got people trickling in from the waiting room. Very free flow, no real format to this. I host these every so often. So if you guys have a question related to the Airbnb stuff, short-term rentals, anything tax related, bonus depreciation, market updates, wanting to review a pro forma, more than happy to knock this out with you guys right now. We'll just go in no particular order. Tristan, I see that you're on here. Dr. E, I see that you're on here as well. If one of you guys want to take the mic, just kick things off. Hey,
Uh,
what's up, Tristan?
so my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, has invested with you guys. He's on his third property
Oh,
and
who's
is
this?
Peter Eck.
Oh, Peter's awesome. Tristan,
Yes.
we got family on this call. We love working
Yes.
with Peter. Yeah, very
So I
cool.
can be a spokesperson in a way, but yes, we've stayed at two of the properties as well. So we've experienced the properties. We're understanding a lot about what we're seeing as the results, but not understanding what all it takes to get there if we were to also invest and do this on our own.
Cool. Yeah, I would love to walk you through it. For context for everybody else, what Tristan is mentioning is Peter's been an awesome client of ours for maybe around 2 years ago is when he started his journey with us. Yeah, Peter's been phenomenal. So yeah, if there's a particular topic you want to dive into, we can start with, the logic behind why. Most people's first reason is just doing the bonus depreciation and then if I tax savings, then cash flow. And then once they kind of get clear on why they're trying to do this, the next place that they'll go is just recognizing what market, what is a good property, what is ideal, what am I actually trying to optimize for? And then the third thing is like, how do I negotiate the deal even better? So instead of me putting 20% down, 25% down, is there a way that I can do 10% down through a conventional loan? Most people use what's called a secondary home loan product, which is 10% down. Some people use creative financing. It just literally depends on what the seller wants. So Tristan, if you want to take yourself off mute again, we can dive into
Sorry.
wherever you'd wish. Yeah, no, go for
Yeah,
it. So
sorry, I have noise in the background, little kids.
go good.
I think that I'm just so new to it that I would like to understand kind of the full, like, how do you guys start and how the process works? And then if anyone else wants to join in on it, like I said,
Sure.
I know the end results. I've seen the places and that it's profitable and it's working, but how do we get there? So I would rather you just go ahead and lead, and if anyone else has questions, that's great.
Cool. Awesome.
Noise.
Yeah, we'll start. So I think the very first thing, and I've put together other YouTube videos on this, and I've gone super deep into like the thesis of why short-term rentals and why now. But the 30-second version of it says you're a super high income earner, you're sick and tired of your tax bills, you know that you got to do something and you've been doing nothing for a really long time. And that third item is just where do I go from here? Like, what is my strategy for finding some mechanism for fielding against my total tax bill, offsetting against my total tax? So most people will go down different rabbit holes and kind of recognize real estate is a vehicle and then which type makes the most sense. Short-term rentals are really the only thing that has that blend of what everybody is really looking for. And if you survey people on this call, I would say 70 to 80% of what is the motive behind this is all tax related. So getting that bonus depreciation, qualifying for it the right way, and then applying that. And then the other 20% is, I want cash flow, I want it to be positive. And then the hidden item that nobody like openly discusses is I want to actually feel good about making a change, which is I want to transform into a person that does this stuff. So Tristan asked this question for those people who just joined. And I know that I'm geeking over here. That's hilarious. You know Peter. That's super funny. So how did you say you're related to him? He's your brother-in-law,
It's my
your
brother-in-law.
husband's.
Yeah, my husband's Kevin who's the middle brother of the family, and
I got to meet all the ex. These guys are super cool. Tristan
Yeah,
apparently runs a business brokerage, so that's super, super awesome. I'm now helping him with like some of his marketing stuff up with Peter. So you
cool.
guys are all awesome. Cool. So the next dialogue would be like, okay, so why short-term rentals? Why now? Well, let's say you make $400,000 a year. Your tax bill is probably 90 to $140,000. It's more depending upon the state that you live in. You would recognize, okay, well, what I want to do is buy my first short-term rental. What does that look like on paper? What purchase price can I get? What amount of tax savings can I get? How is all the whole process going to unfold? So what you would end up doing is recognize, where's a market where there's likely appreciation. So where are people still going to be buying in 5, 10 years? Where does it make sense? Factoring other variables. Where is there going to be cash flow? And then what property specifically has the highest likelihood of giving me cash flow? It's a product of my annual income needs to be higher than my annual expenses. So a good back of napkin math way to do this is most properties, around 13 to 15% of the total purchase price will be what your annual expenses are. So if I have $1 million home, my math wizards out there, 13% or 15%, I would know my expenses are probably going to be in the range of $130,000 to $150,000 per year. So what do I need to find? I need to find something that's going to do at least 16, 17, 18, 19, 20% of whatever the total purchase price is in gross income. So that equation that we just defined is called yield. So I need to have a yield that is higher than my annual expenses. So that process is where most people get stuck. Because it's like, hey, I see stuff out here, but I don't know how to feel confident about anything. I don't know what the expenses are going to be. I don't know what the income's going to be. Therefore, I can make these projections on what the cash flow will be, but I don't really have certainty. So that's specifically where we step in and help. It's getting the clarity and then the certainty as a product of having the data on those homes. So if I survey everybody on this call, and I think we'll have another like 15 to 20 people hop in here, if everybody kind of collectively wants to go down one of those rabbit holes of like, how do you define a market? How do you project the income? How do I feel good about knowing there's data that supports what a property will do in terms of income? There's other comparison properties or comps that support what type of income a property would do. And then what will the expenses be? If you guys would like to run through that, I'm more than happy to do it. So that's basically the whole backstory of what is it and how does it work. Once you define and see a property like that, so if you guys did it on your own, or if you guys used a company like us or another company, you would basically reach out to the seller or the listing agent if it's a property that's listed on a platform like Zillow, for example, and it has a listing agent or a real estate agent representing a seller. You'd say, hey, I love this property. I want to put in an offer. I'm hoping that I can get on a quick phone call with you so we can review the price and terms that we're ready to present on this and just make sure that it makes sense for both of us. Real estate is a very karma driven industry. You can't really take somebody's head off at a closing table. You're not Grant Cardone or what he pretends to be in his Instagram persona. You're not destroying seller. You have to do something that's reasonable for both parties. Otherwise, they will reject your offer politely or not so politely. So the next step is just basically getting on a call with the seller or the listing agent saying, hey, I'm an investor. I want to run this as a short-term rental. I have a checklist of items that I need to confirm. I need to know that if there's an HOA, does the HOA allow short-term rentals? Is this already being ran as a short-term rental? Do you have any income history if this is already ran as a short-term rental? Is the furniture going to convey? Meaning everything that I see on the Zillow listing, I see that there are photos full of furniture, amazing furniture. You did a great job. Are you going to pass all this over? Which 80% of sellers, if you actually ask them, they will. And that will be baked into the total purchase price, baked into the terms. So the next thing is, got it. So now I need to structure an offer. And here's where most people get lost. To me, it doesn't necessarily make sense to go the 20, 25% down route that most people will do. Just quickly, so I can survey the call. There are 10 people on here, including myself. Just throw a 3 in the chat if you guys are engaged. Throw a 3 in the chat if you guys have bought a home, an investment property before, just so I know. And then throw a 4 in the chat if you guys have never bought anything. So 3, bought a home, and then a 4 indicates never purchased a investment and investment property. Okay, cool. So Dr. E has Tristan is no, but she shared it. That's cool. Dr. E and Rishi, if you guys just want to drop in the chat, was it a short-term rental, long-term rental, or something different? Just let me know, and then we can move on from Tristan's question. Cool, long-term. Okay. Most people are probably going to put 20% down, and there's nothing wrong with that until you look at your cash on cash return and then also your internal rate of return. So what you're really trying to optimize for is you want to buy the most amount of property for the lowest money into that total deal. So the down payment and closing costs and whatever you put into the deal post closing. And because we get this thing called bonus depreciation, what we're really trying to optimize for is we just want to get the most property that we possibly can that has a pretty good confidence interval of breaking even or being cash flow positive. Therefore, what I want to confirm is all the stuff that we discussed up until this point, which is just making sure that the property has a very good likelihood of breaking even or cash flowing positive. And then also knowing if there's anything specifically that I can do to improve the home and get even better performance without breaking the bank. So a lot of the suggestions that we put together for clients who take over homes end up being very low time intensive, very low degree of difficulty, and very straightforward design improvements to the home. So I'm not talking about knocking out walls within a kitchen or replacing cupboards and cabinets and all this nonsense. It's great if you want to improve the value of the home, but all we're really trying to do is just find reasons why people would want to stay at the home even more than, what is already at the property enticing them to stay. So the things we assess are things like, I might need to hire a designer. Mural designer is what we refer to them as, people who draw and paint these really high quality, classy, not tacky murals. They're actually quite cool. When you look at some of the finished products, and I have some clients, if you guys want to go through designs, we can show you what they end up doing. The next item is figuring out if there's going to be any general contractor slight improvements, we would say, to the property. Basically, somebody just coming through and finding a way to do cosmetic touch-ups is what we would refer to them as. So cosmetic touch-ups from a general contractor, design items from a mural designer or an artist or a painter, whatever you want, whatever label they assume. And then the final item would be any other interior design. So things like theming a property, improving the theme or design element of a property with those murals, but also things like improved furniture. So if you're going to replace any type of furniture or do anything else to slightly or significantly improve the property without necessarily breaking the bank, those are going to be the combination of items that you guys make a final assessment on once a seller has gotten back to you and they say, I'm willing to do this price, I'm willing to do this terms. What you're going to look at is what is my now total entry into the deal and what is my total internal rate of return. So the biggest internal rate of return that you guys are going to get is still the net effective tax savings. So if you can significantly reduce your total taxable income as a product of closing on a short-term rental property and getting what's called bonus depreciation, that thing that helps you offset your total taxable income down by whatever amount of bonus depreciation you end up getting as a result of ordering what's called a cost segregation study after you close, what you now have is a pretty clear snapshot of what is this deal really? I have a purchase price, I have an internal rate of return, I have a cash on cash return, I have a rough estimate of what other homes in the area are doing. And if this home's already been live, I may or may not know what it's already been doing as a short-term rental. I know with great clarity what my likely expenses are. And I think I've emailed you a lot of people are on this call. I've emailed you a list of example deals. So I have video breakdowns in a Google Sheet, what we call a pro forma that breaks down a column for the expenses, a column for the total entry into the deal. So the down payment, the closing costs, and then basic improvements to make on the home after you close. And then another separate section for income. So I know what I'm putting in at closing and right after closing. So my down payment and closing costs are due the day that I close. And the property is deeded over to me, no matter how you buy the home, with a secondary home loan product, with creative financing, whatever. Then there are additional items that we budgeted for slight improvements, which most people, whether they're clients of ours or whether they're people who've just been buying short-term rentals on their own, they will literally fly to the property maybe 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 days after they close. They'll show up, they'll spend 3 to 5 days there. They have a general contractor coming in doing the basic improvements, and then a designer alongside them doing the more complex one, like the painting, like design improvement, like whatever. So now you've made the decision, you're going to go under contract. Typically, it takes around 30 to 40 days for most deals to close. If they're creative, it takes closer to like 20 days because there's no bank involved, there's no lender involved. And then once you guys have closed on the home, now it's time to start working with what I would refer to as a co-host. So a co-host is somebody who you guys might think this is synonymous with a property manager. A co-host is going to be somebody who takes elements of what a property manager does, and they're going to have 3 responsibilities. Number 1 is revenue management. So they're going to optimize the listing to get as many people booked for as much dollar per night, average daily rate or dollar per night. Second is guest communication or the people management who are coming into the property. You have to communicate with them. And then the third element is team management. So you have cleaning teams, you have vendors like a plumber, an electrician, other technicians who come through and make improvements to the home or replace things and do upkeep Those are their three responsibilities. Well, they're going to create the listing. They're going to get it live for you on Airbnb. They're going to probably do some off-platform promoting. So they might create a verbal listing. They'll typically create a direct platform for booking, like a website. So like drte.com, for example. Obviously, would probably choose a different domain, but he would promote his property there. Same listing photo, same description, but instead of booking through Airbnb, you'd book through his platform. And you can schedule cleaning teams to come in right before the clean or right before the guest checks in. So super straightforward. So now you guys are at that stage where you're ready to go live. Your co-host is ready to take the property live and start getting bookings. And now you guys have pretty much done most of the not so heavy lifting because all you've really done throughout this process is actually just like showed up at the home and maybe stayed there for 3 to 5 days, which is going to be pretty typical for what most investors do. So Tristan, I know I threw a lot at you. I see you're taking yourself off mute. Should
Yes, I
we
have questions.
yeah, I rambled there for 8 minutes. I hope that stream of consciousness helped. Guys, throw a six in the chat if that was useful. Throw a seven if you thought it was useful and want a specific breakdown on anything there. So six if it was useful, and then seven if you guys heard something, and then want to dive deeper on any one particular item. So throw a seven and then put your notes in there, and I will go through whatever topic you covered next. So Tristan, while you're live on here, anything in particular to dive deeper into?
Yes.
Okay,
So I somewhat understand the breakdown of what you're saying. I come from a design background and we kind
go
of have a
six.
goal flips as well. So if I know you broke down the three parts that if we're coming in and say we want to do the renovations, whatever it is I am kind of act as the GC myself. If we do that, what all is the value that you guys are bringing? I know you said property management, you're co-hosting, you handle the cleaning groups. What else do you guys bring to the table on your side if we were to balance it out?
Sure. Through the whole end-to-end process or just for the hosting and support after closing?
I guess end-to-end process.
Okay. I mean, it's three big items. Number one, it's taking the guesswork out of finding a home that will work, and then the legwork out of actually doing the process to source it, talk to the seller, underwrite it for income, expenses, find a co-host, talk to a co-host, go under contract, do the negotiation prior to going under contract, do all the back and forth with the title company while you're closing, order the inspection, review the inspection report, negotiate what's called a seller credit, which is amount that comes back to you, the buyer, at closing, if you haven't already negotiated it, and then close on the home. And then 6 weeks or 6 months later, learn, sorry for the language, that you completely effed it up, that you made one of two critical mistakes that majority of people who do come to work with us, they've done this on their own or they work with another local realtor. Number one, they got the compliance wrong. So there's either a county level ordinance that doesn't allow you to do under 30-day stays and you didn't catch that. Or what's more common is there's an HOA who has what are called CCNRs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions that prevent anybody from running a property as a short-term rental, like doing under 12-month leases is what it's referred to as. So the value adds are just one, making sure you don't step on any landmines throughout this entire process that are going to eventually turn this into an absolute nightmare. I personally stepped on just about every landmine you can. In 2019, I did things wrong. In 2021, I did things wrong. And my goal is to just make sure that anybody who's really interested in doing this stuff is now doing it the right way. So the three main value adds outside of the ambiguous ones is one, I think just finding better deals. It takes a lot. I'm actually bringing Jack and Joe from my team in here who are our transaction coordinators. So they close on hundreds of homes for clients every single year. So they see all the nitty gritty of everything else that we do behind the scenes and they can share a little bit about that. The first one is they also know what our team's numbers are for how many deals we look at. We have to look at hundreds of deals every single day. So literally over 3,500 deals per week on average, just to find maybe 8 to 15 that actually work and a seller agrees on the price and terms. That is what finding a deal actually is. So 8 to 15 out of 3,500, if any math wizards want to math that out, I don't know what that actually comes out to. It's got to be under 1 to 2%. Like when I say we
I applaud
disqualify
you on
90.
that. So I have heard very
Thank
good
you.
things too, that you guys do your research to find the best advised locations to invest in, where those of us that don't know would not have that benefit.
I'm glad the grapevine has treated us well. Thank you, Tristan. Also, that's a little unfair because you know Peter Eck. So yes, Peter Eck is going to be our number one brand ambassador. That's for sure. And I think I've introduced Peter to some of the other people on here. So the second one is, once it's not just find something, it's all these. So that's the guesswork, right? The next two items are going to be the legwork. So now comes the time when you literally have to go and compete with everybody else in the market who's trying to buy that home, which if it's a good Airbnb, there are a few people who know how to underwrite homes properly, but you're competing with the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, is it State Street? That's the other hedge fund, and they all own each other. They all have a little bit of equity in each other. Like they can also do this stuff, but it's hard. I've gotten offers from, interestingly enough. This is the year where I'm going to have a heart to heart with the team. It's like, oh, interesting. I hate them though. So I would never exit or work with them in any capacity. Fuck those guys. Sorry for the language. So now we're clear on number one, the guesswork is gone. Number two, the legwork starts with now you got to negotiate the price and terms with the seller. And then you actually have to do all the work and find all the people to help the property close. So you need the title company. The seller will already have typically a listing agent. 10% of sellers will just do what's called a FSBO for sale by owner. So you're communicating with the listing agent and you need to get a ton of stuff from them before you even close on the home. Typically, you'll ask them for an intro to the HOA president or some member or a board member who sits on there. And we don't close on anything or go under contract on anything until we get an email from that person. So I'm going to pick on the first name I see here, Jackie. I'm sorry, Jackie. You're my victim. You're HOA Karen. I'm sorry that I chose you. So let's say Jackie is the HOA president, right? And even if the property is 100% compliant and allowed by the HOA to be ran as a short-term rental, if I email Jackie and I say, hey, Jackie, we're looking at 123 Main Street, Poconos, Pennsylvania, 80707. We're going to close on this home, just looking for confirmation that you're 100% good with us running this as a short-term rental. And HOA Karen, aka Jackie, sorry for picking on you, said, you know what, to hell with you guys. If you try and run this as a short-term rental, I'm going to make this the most miserable experience of your entire life. Well, guess what? I have ran into clients who have told me those horror stories, and it never happened to us. It had never happened to any of our clients at that time. This was about 3 years ago in mid 2022. And I saw that and I was like, oh, we need to add this to our little SOP, this 81 point checklist that we have now, which is like, get that email from the HOA president and make sure they support and applaud your efforts and they're not pushing against you. So the main value adds are just a better cash flowing property for better price and terms and also lower money down. So I think the final element of this is kind of a product of negotiating better with the seller and also just knowing and having done more real estate transactions than most people in the US. We also know what are the loan products that make the most sense because I would love to stretch my dollar further. If I could buy $1 million home instead of putting 200 or $250,000 down, which we have clients who have that amount, but they'd ideally like to separate that across two separate deals. So they could maybe buy $2 million worth of real estate instead of putting 200 or $250,000 down with your typical conventional loan product that's 20 or 25% down, or what's called a DSCR loan product, which God forbid you do anything like that right now, the interest rate is going to be 8.75%. That just ate up all your cash flow if you're doing that. Rather than going that route, we'd like to explore a loan product, which is either 10% down. So that's a secondary home loan product, which is phenomenal. I've personally done secondary home loan products for myself. I have one from 2021, and I think the second was from 2022. They're phenomenal products. Or, and that's 10% down, and you can get a slightly lower than industry average rate right now. So I have a client, for example, who's going under contract with something today. His pre-approval came back for 6.35% interest rate, which is, it doesn't sound phenomenal, but right now, that's pretty freaking good. Throw an 8 in the chat if you believe 6.35% is very good. It actually is. It's not crazy ideal, but it's like relatively good for where we are in the market. Dr. E knows. Thank you for the 8. So the big value adds is just number one, taking the guesswork out of finding something that is good. Like Tristan mentioned, it is a lot. The second value add is just taking the legwork out of all the negotiating, the back and forth with the seller, and just continuously doing this process. And then the third item is going to be mainly just finding ways to do it creatively with lesser money down. So that $1 million example, for example, and then Naveen, I'll go to your question after this because Naveen, you asked a really good one on if I buy a home, $500,000, what's the bonus depreciation look like? So I'll do Naveen next. And if you guys also have questions, just drop them in the chat. I will go through in order, or if I see ones that are kind of similar. So the next item is figuring out how do we get lower money down. The other two items are subject to financing, which is taking over the home. It's deeded over to you at closing. So you actually own this home the day that you close. And in addition to that, the debt stays in the seller's name. So you didn't apply for a loan. So let's use Naveen since I just picked on him, for example. Let's say Naveen owns a $600,000 home in Westminster, Colorado, and he bought that home 3 years ago. Say he used an FHA loan. It's not uncommon that people use FHA loans to buy their first property and run it as an investment property. We could take over that home. We could close on it. The property would be deeded over to us. We'd maybe put 40 to $70,000 down. The seller has almost no equity in that deal. So probably closer to like 40 to 50, maybe 60,000 there. Or like 6 to 10% down. The interest rate, since it was purchased 3 years ago, happens to be pretty darn good. It's probably a 3.25, 3.5% interest rate, which is ideal. Well, property would be deeded from Naveen to me at closing. So I own the property, but the debt is still in Naveen's name. So Naveen doesn't make the payments anymore. I get access to his login portals, his portals where he's got his account number connected and his routing number connected, and I swap in mine. And that's part of the agreement for closing. So that's one way, subject to financing. And then most of you guys have actually seen my video on seller financing. Similar outcome, just different means of getting there. Seller financing is basically finding a seller who's on the opposite end of the spectrum. They own the home entirely in cash or almost entirely in cash, and they're not in any rush to sell. So think more affluent. This is basically you 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. Where will you be with your portfolio? Well, I've owned the home since 2025 or 2026. It's now 2045 or 2046. I now own this home. It's appreciated a ton. It's gone up a ton in value. And now I'm basically in a position where I want to move on. I'm ready to fully retire. I like the idea of passing the stuff on to my kids or my grandkids. Problem is, little Sally is literally 18 months old. She's my grandkid. And I thought the idea of passing this stuff on to my family would be really cool. In reality, I could maybe just give them cash or a trust fund or do something else or leave my estate to them. So I'd rather just sell the home right now. Well, they would have a massive capital gains event. So they would sell the home. They would do capital gains taxed on their proceeds from the sale and all the net increase of that sale. So they don't want that. But when they talk to their CPA, when they talk to their tax advisor, they talk to their strategist advises them, there are a couple really simple things you can do. You can easily set up what's called a charitable foundation and then typically a DAF or a donor authorized fund. And you need to run these things appropriately for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years so that on paper, if you ever do want to collect proceeds from the sale of this home today, but maybe with something like a balloon payment in 5 years where the buyer makes you whole for all the amount that you sell or finance, it would be over a 30-year term, but in 5 years, the whole amount would be due. Well, by year 5, that's typically when a buyer has or seller has ran that strategy for long enough where a CPA and tax strategist recognizes, yes, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, you're now good. If in 2030 you collect a balloon payment, which is 5 years from today, you'd be fine. You'd be able to collect the proceeds through either the charitable foundation or another LLC that you spun up. You'd be able to move those proceeds to your DAF or your donor authorized fund. So you have access to all this capital. You can take loans against it, and you won't be capital gains taxed on those gains. If I confused anybody, throw a 6 in the chat. If you understood all of that, throw a 9. And if you actually threw a 9 in there and you're looking for a job, you can come work for my team and do these webinars and present all this stuff because it's kind of exhausting to repeat this. If anybody really did understand all that, I'd be excited. But that's basically it. I'm going a little off the rails. Naveen, would you like me to dive into your question here? Hopefully that was useful, guys. We're now getting 17 other people, including me, on here. So hopefully you guys are finding this useful. I'm just going to go quickly through I'm sorry, not Strategy School. Naveen's question. Naveen, if you want to take yourself off mute, and also it's great to see you on here. If I buy a $500,000 property, how much can I write off? Cost segregation study would come to 50% of purchase price, or what factors drive the cost seg study? For example, condos, single family homes with maximum square footage gets better depreciation. So cost segregation, the amount is actually driven by you strip away the value of land. So I, for example, am heading over to a real estate event that's a 3-day event in Capos, Costa Rica. Throw a 9 in the chat if you've been to Costa Rica before, or could come and facilitate that and actually facilitate it. The land that I'm standing on today is literally sand and dirt. If I bought this land today, the valuation could go up and down over time, but the material use of it would not depreciate over time. Like this land is not going to get old and crusty. Like this land is old and crusty. It's been here since however the dawn of time or the dawn of this beach is. So it's not depreciable. So when a cost segregation study company produces the total amount that you can take as bonus depreciation in year one, they remove the land value. And most land value, depending upon where you're buying, is like 8 to 30%. It's a pretty wide range of the total purchase price. But what's cool is the total value that comes back on average for bonus depreciation typically comes between 25 to 35% of whatever the total purchase price is. So Naveen, you weren't far off, like 40 to 60% of whatever the assessment value of everything that isn't land is. The math. It's like 40 to 60% of like 75, 80% of the home, or 30% roughly of the total purchase price. They'll kind of math out the same way. And then also your CPA or tax strategist will look through the cost segregation study before you actually prep and file your returns. And they'll look through and see if the cost seg study company missed or didn't accelerate anything as far as they could have or should have. And therefore, you might get something that's close to like 30, 35, sometimes 40%. So in an example, I always use the $1 million example for really easy math. $1 million home, $300,000 is a good estimate for bonus depreciation. I'm just going to segue into this. This calendar year is the year that 100% bonus depreciation comes back. I did record a 8-minute YouTube video on this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And in fact, can I do a little self promotion? Can I just show you guys the YouTube channel so you guys can see this and hopefully decide to actually check this stuff out? Reshoot, yeah, your understanding is correct. Let me just show you guys really quickly here. Oh God, you're going to see what my what my uh, YouTube algorithm shows me here now. Okay, I made it. All right, so here's the bonus depreciation one. So shameless plug. If you guys want to see it, what can I do? I can just share the link to you guys. Basically, what I did is I put together a breakdown since I started a little bit earlier, but I think the real momentum stuff started in 2016, 2017 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act stuff. So basically, what this means is there's a bill that's going to be passed, and I think the mechanics of how this is going to be passed is there's going to be a repeal of the 2022 reform to the original 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which implemented that stair-stepping down rule. Throw a 6 in the chat if you guys know what the stair-stepping down rule is. I'm certain most of you have heard this. Like 2 years ago, it was 80% or whatever that maximum 30 to 35% bonus depreciation amount was. And then last year, 2024, if you bought something and got it live, it was 60% of whatever that $350,000 amount on $1 million home was. And then this year, it's 40%. Is Rishu the only one paying attention? Throw an 8 if you guys are completely unfamiliar with that. I'm sure you guys are. I would imagine there are more 6s in here. So nonetheless, it's really not a matter of if, it's just when. What's going to happen is Trump has already stated, and in that video I explain it, he's highlighted this at least 4 times on video. The last one was in January of this year, is at the World Economic Forum. And then again, I timestamped all of this in here. Hold on a second, let's pull it up. Yep. So might be tiny, but January 23rd, he mentioned at the World Economic Forum. February 19th, he was at the Institute. Don't know what that is. And then March 5th, he had his State of the Union address. So basically, again, not a matter of if, rather when. But the really good news is, and I posit this on the video as well, what will happen is as soon as that announcement comes that he's like motioning it to be, or sorry, that the House of Representatives plus senators, Congress people who all like co-authored a bill to do this last year. It passed the House. It was like 350 to 70 votes. And I talked about that in the video as well. That same bill will get reauthored with almost identical language. It will pass with flying colors very, very swiftly this year. Well, as soon as that notification comes through, real estate market will pick up like crazy, meaning there are a ton of buyers, like kind of like you guys. Like all you are sitting on the sidelines right now, whether you're, maybe some of you are doing short-term rentals, but I know almost nobody on here is already working full time. You guys, if you heard the 100% bonus depreciation has come back today, our team's calendar would blow up with calls from people who want to do this. Well, you guys are not alone. So my thesis that I posit at the end of that video, and hopefully this was enough context, I'll move on to the next question after this, was basically, it's not a matter of if, it's when. The longer this goes on, where it's not yet confirmed, it's actually ideal because we have a smaller pool of buyers that we're competing with. And what does that mean? We're basically able to negotiate better price and terms. Like the deal flow that we're getting right now in the program is phenomenal. It will be much trickier to consistently produce that type of deal flow once bonus depreciation gets repealed back to the 100% amount, which is great news for everybody. But then, like, there'll be hundreds of thousands of additional people who are now trying to compete and buy the same short-term rent. So the stuff we're looking at, the stuff other people, they will eventually look at that as well. So, Naveen, hopefully that helped, and it's great to see you on here, sir. And I'm excited to work with you. Let's get started. I know you're ready. Uh, Will Sue says you. Oh, let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. Yanni, does every deal that you do, they are creative financing, low entry cost, and traditional cost? Every deal that we will promote in the program is going to be a lower money down deal. It's not necessarily 100% of those being creative. So what does that mean? What I was covering earlier is what I would refer to low money down is really anything under 15 to 20% down. Because traditionally, most every loan product is going to be for like 20 to 30% down. So one way to do that without creative financing is using what's called a secondary home loan product. And this is super common ever since the mid 2010s. If you ask any lender who's ever sponsored and approved a secondary home loan, that loan product has been around for a while. And it was traditionally for people who literally wanted, as the name states, a secondary home where they are able to go and uh, basically stay for a portion of the year while they're not living in their primary residence. Well, once Airbnb really started getting traction just over 10 years ago, almost exclusively, those people use that conventional loan product for residential use or commercial use by running those homes as Airbnbs. So the lender is the one who absorbs all the risk there because they are the ones who are forced to adhere to certain guidelines on who they sponsor those loans for in their intended use case. The good news is, knock on wood, I've never met anybody who has ever closed with a secondary home loan product, and I'm actually pretty open about having used mine because it's the lender who is the one who is absorbing the risk. So Yanni, I hope that helps. And everything else that we'll do is typically a subject to non-qualified loan assumption takeover. So I was mentioning this earlier. If I think I use Naveen as the example, if Naveen sells me his home that he bought 3 years ago, the debt would stay in his name, but the property would be deeded over to me. So I own the property at closing, and I'm now responsible for making those debt payments that are still in Naveen's name. So I hope that helps, Yanni. And if you want me to go deeper on that, just bump in the chat. You can take yourself off in a second. Will Sue, you find these deals. How do you make money on these deals? Yes, we find these deals. We have a program fee. If you want to discuss the program and the program fee, I can send you a direct booking link right after this call, or I can have Jack or Joe on my team reach out to discuss all that. And Will, yes, we help with all that. Rishu, have you worked with people who are on a visa before? Are they allowed to use the short-term rental losses to offset that as well? So really good question. If you are on H-1B, I do recommend that you have a spouse, if you do have one who is not on the H-1B. Otherwise, you kind of do expose yourself to a little bit of risk. The H-1B could technically be pulled. But again, I have spoken to a ton of investors who have already bought short-term rentals even before they come into our program. I don't really know whose incentive it is to audit you and sponsor the H-1B. Like it would almost have to be your employer who hates you and is already sponsoring your H-1B and wants you to no longer be sponsored with it. So the question I always ask is who is the party and what's their incentive for performing the audit or performing the execution of penalizing whatever the infraction was. So since you're on a visa, we can also talk about it on a call. And I have clients who have already bought stuff before they even ended up working with us while they're on a visa. Personally, I don't think it's a big issue, but I'm also not somebody who's on an H-1B visa, which I'm assuming you're on H-1B. So I personally wouldn't be concerned about it, but also I'm not the one to suggest yes or no, should you ever do that, because I'm not personally on one. But I'm happy to speak with you if you want to reach out separately after this. What would be the benefit for the seller for this? How does the seller guarantee the payment? And this is Yanni's question again. How does the seller guarantee the payment? But the deed is under buyer. I'm just trying to. Yeah, Yanni, it's literally like so this is what's called a promissory note. So when you work with a mortgage company, when you work with a lender, you work with a bank, and you buy a home and there's a loan product, that is a promissory note between you, Yanni, and your spouse. I believe we spoke actually 2 weeks ago, and the bank. So the promissory note is between you, the buyer, and the bank. Well, in a seller finance transaction, the seller is now the bank. So you have a promissory note with the seller, but instead of it being with the bank, it's now the seller. So you make payments. And it's the exact same, way that there's a mechanism that guarantees that payments are made when the seller holds the promise, or when the bank holds a promissory note. There's a seller finance addendum, which has the payment structure, the payment date, first of the month or 15th of the month or whatever. And if a payment is not made or if a payment is late, these XYZ penalties go into effect. So it's the exact same structure. It's just instead of it being with the bank, it's now with the seller. So really, really good question. I hope that wasn't an oversimplification. But I think that's, again, fairly straightforward. Raul, if we take depreciation now, the value of the property decreases, not necessarily. So we will end up paying more capital gains tax on it when we end up selling the property. So a better way to think about it is, let's say we have this thing called an asset, and you're buying an asset. That asset could be a business, it could be a vehicle, it could be a piece of property like real estate. Doesn't matter. Associated with that asset is this thing called depreciation. And what the IRS basically categorizes that as is it is a reasonable rate to which this business or this asset or this whatever as an expense category that we, the IRS, want to incentivize people who buy these types of assets. And that depreciation is the incentive, which allows them to expense against their total income. So that's really what depreciation and utility of it is. So, for example, for those of you who run businesses or have ever seen any of your coworkers do this at work, have you ever seen anybody buy like a 6,000 pound SUV or Lamborghini or other massive car? And they say, oh, this was a write-off. And you're like, how'd you write it off? Like, well, I have a business and I bought it through my business. That's exactly what they're referring to. So when they bought the vehicle or the asset, in this scenario, it's not like the vehicle went down in value immediately. It's for the market to decide what is the valuation of this asset. So, and the market being like another buyer, right? So when you end up selling the home, because your next question is, will we pay capital gains taxes on it? When you buy an asset and the asset goes up in value, you are paying capital gains on appreciation. So let's use another example. Let's say you buy an asset like gold. Let's say you buy $100,000 worth of golden bars, and they are physical assets. They're sitting in your hands. Well, in 5 years, those assets are worth, let's say, $150,000. When you sell those to the next buyer, you're being capitally gains taxed on $50,000. And what is $50,000? That is the net increase that the asset has gain or appreciation. So your capital gains tax, the tax paid on the gains when you sell the asset. And the same is true in real estate. But what is cool about real estate is there's also a mechanism that allows you to have a grace period when you do sell, if and when you do sell an investment property, you can do what's called a 1031 exchange, which is really, really cool. A 1031 exchange grants you this 6-month grace period where you're able to basically use those 6 months to identify and then buy another home with the proceeds from the home that you just sold. And what does that mean? It means you're not paying any recapture or capital gains tax on the sale of that first home. And you can use the funds from that sale of that home to fund your next deal, which is probably what you guys are going to do for the rest of your life until you're 70, 80, 90. Well, now we're all living towards 120 years old because we're all biohacking on this call, right? Throw a 6.5 in the chat if you're biohacking like Brian Johnson and I are trying to live to a million. Or if you hate those guys, throw a 3 in the chat. So I know not to work with you because they're my idols. Just joking, of course. So you will pay capital gains on the sale of the home when you sell it, but likely what's going to happen is you're going to do what's called a 1031 exchange to use that to fund your next deal. And you'll just keep amassing a much larger portfolio. So you're getting into real estate not to buy and sell property. You're getting into property, you're getting into real estate to buy and hold, take the depreciation and the net effective tax savings right now. And then by year 5, which I'm in year 5 technically right now, and like this is when everything gets crazy. All you're doing now is getting appraisals for the new value of the home that's gone up maybe 15, 20, 30%, 40% in value. And now you're getting a loan for the new value of the property or 80% of the new value of the property. You're using that loan to immediately pay off the debt that's still outstanding on the home. And then you're left over with whatever remainder, and you're using that to buy more real estate or fund your lifestyle or buy crypto or just sit on it in cash. So it's super, super fun. That's the game that you're trying to play. Hope this is helping. Jackie said, I didn't know I was sending private messages. Oh, okay. I think that I missed something. Oh, maybe she was sending to somebody else. Jackie, maybe send them again. Hopefully, yeah, just drop them in the chat. I think everyone else is sending everything or to everyone. So keep the questions coming, guys. We'll keep doing this for another 20 minutes or so. We have, what about other visas like 01A? Rishu, just text me or email me. And I can put you on with a client or try and get you more guidance there. Amber asks, can we sell this property? Do we have lock-in? I don't know what lock-in means, like a rate lock or something else. If we decide to sell the property later, what is the implication on the depreciation and what kind of tax implication will we have? That was exactly what I just defined. So you can sell a property at any point in time. My ideal scenario is when a home goes up so much in value, you guys aren't selling it. You're playing the infinite money glitch game. You're doing what wealthy people do. Rich people sell. Wealthy people never sell. Wealthy people will hold on to the asset indefinitely, like forever. And every time it goes up another 10, 15, probably closer to 15, 20, 25, 30% in value, you're getting an appraisal. So if I bought a home, let's say 3 years ago, for example, for 1 million, and it went up a lot in value and it's now worth 1.3, well, I'm not selling the home and getting cash that way. I'm going to get an appraisal for like 500 to 700 bucks, depending on the area. The appraiser comes back and tells me it's worth 1.31 million, which is awesome. I go to my bank and I say, give me a loan for 80% of 1.31 million. And they give me 1.05 million, whatever 80% of 1.3 million is. So they give me just over $1 million. Well, the debt that I had on the home is like 750,000. I use that 1.05 million, pay off all the 750,000, I'm left over with $250,000 plus. What am I doing with that 250? Probably buying real estate if I'm making a lot of money this year. Probably deploying into some other retirement fund or asset class that I like to fund. I might buy more index funds. I might buy other money markets. I might buy crypto. I might do something else. So Amber, I hope that helps as well. MJ, for an average property, how much can you depreciate as percentage of home value? Like I mentioned, 25 to 35%. It's going to be pretty typical. Uh, Raul, depreciation will end in a few years, right? The benefit from depreciation will stop. No. Trump is going to move forward with the same bill. So this bill, and I talk about it in that video, this bill already got offered. In fact, here, everybody needs to go to my YouTube channel and check this one out right after today's call. By the way, guys, if I unintentionally lose you guys, it's because I am almost running out of battery. So I did not intend to lose battery here this fast. No. Hopefully it's just because we're dropping fire on this phone. My battery's overheating back there. So Raul, watch the video. I think that will give you clarity. But no, last year this bill was already sponsored to basically repeal all the stair stepping down stuff. And there will be no there will be no definitive end to the idea of being able to buy take bonus depreciation and close on bonus. And even if something did change in future years from now, all that really matters is the year one stuff. So while there's bonus depreciation and incentives for you to buy assets like this, run it this way, do the $100, take the bonus depreciation, get the net effective tax savings, like you're going to continue to do that. Charlie, you were messaging me privately by mistake. Do you have any properties in the California market? Dude, I don't like California. It's just the least landlord-friendly state in the entire U.S. And for those of you who live out there, dude, why do you even want to buy something in California? You know, most of you who live there right now, like you guys are almost guaranteed, especially in the Bay Area. It's like, what are you guys doing? Come join us in Texas, in Florida, in Wyoming, in Nevada, literally anywhere. There's 0% state activity. I don't like California because I think the market is really tricky. There's definitely places that can work, but just again, you have no protection. Like somebody can show up in your home today, check in, just lock all the doors and literally decide to never leave. And what is your recourse? Nothing. It's insanity. No, it's just too much risk, and I try to de-risk. So I don't like that. Yanni, I do not have anything in Washington. And we don't look there very often. We honestly find better markets. Raul, I meant the depreciation on the same property. If I've already taken 30 to 35 depreciation on the property. I'm not sure what you mean. If you're still on here, you could take yourself off mute. Raul, if you're comfortable with it, I'll ask you to unmute. And then otherwise, like free for all after Raul, he has taken himself off mute. Go ahead, sir.
So, yeah, I was just asking, like, if my property value is 1 million and I've already taken depreciation close to, say, 300,000, whatever is
Okay.
allowable, you know, after that, I can take it for 5 years or something, and after that, it is likely going to stop, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
at that point, the property may not be lucrative from the net
Mhm.
cash flow point of view, right? Maybe if the revenue is not flowing in.
Let me capture the context correctly. Is this a theoretical situation or did you already close on a home that you're referring to?
I've not closed on a home, but a theoretical situation.
Okay. What's the price point of this home? Can we say 1 million?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say you put 10% down. Just for whatever, like 150 all in. Okay. So the bonus depreciation came back at 300 grand. So let's say you also make $1 million this year. So the bonus depreciation amount, Raul's income would drop from 1 million. Let's just forget all the other context. What I'm saying is incorrect technically. But let's say $1 million is your income. That bonus depreciation was 300,000. That's what can be accelerated to year one. That's what will eventually be accelerated to year one this year. So your income now shows 700,000 instead of a million. Years 2 through 5, there is also good incentive. It's honestly not that much. I think on a $300,000 bonus depreciation year one for $1 million property, I'd have to look at a cost seg study. Years 2 through 5, it's something like 65 grand, 50, 40, 40 grand, 35 grand. And that's years 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then years 6 through 39 and years 6 through 39 would be like almost negligible. It's whatever the remainder value of the total home was divided by 39 and 6, 33. So year one is like your big nut. Years 2 through 5, it's a little bit, it's significant. It's more than negligible, less than like crazy significant. And then years 7 through 39, it's like almost nothing. You'll see it, but it's like almost nothing. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, like, so how do you get like the accelerated depreciation the first year? Like, for example, the total depreciation value that can be depreciated is say 30% only. And
Raul, you dropped off for a little bit. Just to respect everybody else, why don't you type that question out super clearly in the chat if you would, please, and then I'll
sure.
address it. It's just because I don't want to go back and forth with you. Cool. No, I'll get and great stuff, man. John Hanna, for example. John, you want to take yourself off mute? Or sorry, I've skipped over one. Sorry, MJ. Do you currently have a lot of deals with seller financing and sub 5 to 6% interest rates? Yes, we do. MJ, we typically go after sellers who own their homes and almost entirely cash. So we have different buy boxes that we look at. I think actually right now we're getting a lot of really good deal flow with conventional, like secondary home loan products. So we have a lot of really good stuff right now. It's a slightly higher interest rate, but also like the buy box is like 30 times higher because 1 out of every 30 sellers will actually want to seller finance the home. Anybody will take a like a loan product, like a cash offer. And the interest rates on those seller finance deals, oh yeah, they're super, super low. So they're sub 5, sub 6% consistently. Typically what we end up seeing is since the seller is also getting the home at slightly over fair market value, like we might buy it 10, 20, 30, $50,000 over fair market value. And that might sound like a lot, but we're also talking like for larger homes specifically. So like $1 million home, it's worth a million, but they want to sell it for $1,035,000. It's like, oh, dude, I'll take that deal all day if you can give me a super low interest rate and like 6 to 10% down. Like I'm winning all day. So yeah, super easy. It's also a product of slightly higher purchase price. Everything is a give and take game. You can't win on price and terms. You got to give a little bit to the seller. You got to take a little bit. It's constant give and take game. But it's super advantageous for us. And also they're in a unique position where it's like what they are trying to optimize for is they are married to their price. They're older, retired, or about to retire. Now their game is they're not trying to make a ton of money every single year. They're just trying not to lose it. So that is the goal with them. And I can go deeper on that. I just got to make sure I have enough data. So great question, MJ. John Hanna. I only have long-term rentals at this time. I know there are benefits of being a licensed real estate agent, but for short-term rentals, there are equal amount of value being a real estate agent. Not really, because the only real advantage there is just not having to do your 100 hours, but then you're also needing to be 750-hour plus real estate agent. And you could represent yourself as a buyer's agent. So the seller wouldn't need to pay as much commission to the buyer. Or you could just skip that and work with us. We do a phenomenal job of negotiating the total closing costs down and the total down payment down, with the seller either going down on the down payment or giving us what's called a seller credit, like money back at closing, because we take a lot of the legwork out of negotiating out a buyer's commission, a buyer's agent commission, or dropping it significantly, because we don't really need one, be that additional expense. So an ideal scenario is there doesn't need to be as much buyer's commission. That's also another way to solve this, which I think is even more ideal. Cool. John Hanna, great question. I'm letting Miguel hop in here as well. So get access to these deals, you need to be a member, correct? Cost will sue. We can talk about that on a one-to-one call. Amber said directly, I joined late, so I missed the earlier discussion. You have a recording of this Zoom session. We will not share the recording publicly. I want to reward all the people who show up and can do this live, but we can do this more frequently. I think this actually went really well. If you guys like to throw a 5 in the chat and just let us know with a 5 if you'd like us to do this again. If this call was terribly inconvenient and not worth it, throw an 11 in the chat so I know that we should never end this again. Cool. Awesome, guys. I think I have a 6 Eastern call coming up here. So I said 60 minutes. We'll wrap it up. Do you guys want to work with us? I'll have Jack and Joe reach out to each of you guys individually. In fact, let me just screenshot everybody who stayed on here. Can squeeze in one or two more questions really quick. Don't all hop off. Don't all hop off. Stay for the one final question. Naveen, are you good? MJ, Raul, Sri, Susan, Will,
Nick, I
Yanni.
just put in one question there, or I can
Yep.
just go through. I just want to understand what are
Yep.
the service fees I pay. One, I pay the BNB accelerator service fees, and do I
Mhm.
pay any brokerage for the buyer or seller agent?
No, so you are the buyer. You're not paying any of the seller. I'm sorry, you're not paying any of the commission fees. So that's always a seller expense. So when a seller sells the home, they recognize that if they engage the help of what's called a listing agent, someone to represent them to sell the home, they're the ones who are covering that expense.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay.
John, you're funny. Yeah, I wish everybody were like John. He said, super helpful. Thank you. Where do I put my credit card number to commit so we can go? John, just drop your credit card in the chat. I'm sure there will be plenty of people who are ready to capture all those 16 digits. Yeah, excited to work with you and Yanni. Tristan asks management fees for a property. Co-hosts will set their own rates and you guys will engage with them and come up with a structure that works. The co-hosts are pretty much always going to do around 15 to 30% of the total revenue of the property. But in most areas, probably closer to like 15 to 20%. So we have like $1 million home, for example, they would probably do like 15%. But again, it depends. Susan, I saw you take yourself off mute. What's up, Susan? Susan, if you wanted to chime in, I was just going to say up to you. If not, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Nope. Might have muted you. Susan, text back in the chat if you want to go on off mute again. Cool. What else, guys? Just rapid fire, and then I will kick everybody off and launch my 6 Eastern call. You can also do this again until you guys are feeling good about everything. Yanni. Oh, hey now. Yep. Excited to work with you too. That was Tristan's. Miguel said, yes, I'm in. Cool. Miguel, I think you and I literally might be scheduled for right now. Is this you and I? Oh, no, we have a different time. Oh, you spoke with Jack earlier today. Is that right, Miguel? I don't know if you're
Yes,
still in there.
yes. Oh,
Cool.
yes, I did speak with someone, but they say to have a meeting at 3 p.m. my time, and I got confused. My time is Eastern, at 6 p.m. right now, so I'm not
Oh,
sure
fun. Okay.
what time we have the meeting today. At 7 p.m.? 7 p.m. I think.
I can go back and check, but looks like wires got crossed. No worries. I'll text Joe to just
Okay.
reach out to Miguel.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, at least you got this one today. That's how you.
Yes.
I'll just verbally spank Jack and Joe on the team for butchering the call time. I'm not sure what happened there. Cool. Let me go through chat, just see if there's anything else. I think we can go a little bit longer. I'll just wait until my 6 Eastern hops in here. Amber, thanks. This is helpful. I feel a Zoom recording would have been helpful. Yep. Yeah, I mean, the reality is I just want to respect everybody's privacy on this call, right? So if somebody asked something that was sensitive, somebody had their last name on a video feed, I don't want to put their in personal info on blast. So we can, again, just schedule a time. We'll solve it. Yanni, do you have co-hosts that you partner with, interior designer that you partner with? We have people that we refer out. So I don't partner with them per se. I don't get a percentage of like any of their business or any business that we send to them. When you say partner with them, what we specifically do is we just have referral partnerships. So we do great work. We have companies, we have agents, we have title companies, we have other realtors who send people over to us, referred to us to do business with us. And the same thing for specific designers, the same thing with co-hosts. So yeah, it's just depending upon the area. Like for example, I have a client who's doing a home in Kissimmee, Davenport, Florida today. Or I'm sorry, he's going under contract today. And he just had me review a quote from a interior designer. Her name is Olga, who quoted him a phenomenal quote. I think it was like $10 per square foot for like the estimated items for furniture, which was probably pretty accurate based on having furnished and paid for design work for a lot of my homes. That's probably super accurate. So really good stuff. Amber, you had John and I are looking for Kissimmee. Yeah, Yanni, you and John just literally go reach out to me soon. Pay me. Uh, he said he's throwing his credit card in the chat. So where are those 16 digits, bro? Let's see it. No, just go sign your Panadoc agreement, pay the Stripe link, and then we will do an onboarding call. We can do one tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday. Let me make sure I'm not missing any questions. John and I are looking for Kissimmee. Yep. Yeah. So the sweet spot in Kissimmee is really 8, 9, 10 bedroom homes for the lowest purchase price possible. And what that's going to end up being is like the $500 to $650,000 purchase price range for 8 bedrooms. 9 and 10 bedrooms will be upwards of 7 something, 800 something. So, but yeah, we find all kinds of stuff in Kissimmee, Davenport. We have like these buy box notifications and alert, super top secret, super technical stuff set up. But yeah, that's an area we consistently look at. Tristan, what are the main areas? We really like, that's one of the great areas for Kissimmee and Davenport in Florida for sure. Austin, Texas is great. The Poconos in Pennsylvania is great. Southern Georgia is really good. The South is surprisingly good. We don't like Phoenix or Scottsdale, Arizona, because that is actually saturated. Nashville is also saturated. The Smoky Mountains, Gatlinburg, unfortunately, I know so many people love that area. Super saturated. North Carolina is tough. But yeah, the main area is Poconos, Pennsylvania, kind of east to west. Poconos, Pennsylvania is really, really good. We're always doing stuff out there. 4 or 5 different areas of Florida. Santa Rosa Beach is always good. Panama City Beach is good. 30A and Destin are always good. That's all the coastline on the southwestern side of Florida. Southern Georgia, southern Alabama, Texas is all really good, but specifically in Texas, Austin, for sure. Let me think anywhere else. Broken Bow, Oklahoma, we really like. Branson, Missouri, sometimes.